welcome to another edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. And we are post trade deadline, and joining me to discuss it, as always, the wonderful, the bright, the intelligent Mr. Rich Baxter. Rich, how are you doing this fine Sunday evening?
All right, Gary. Thank you very much for the introduction. You're awesome as well. Doing well, watching those baseball games, and we have yet another show to discuss here, and we have a lot of great topics tonight.
Yes, we do. And of course, your team, the Philadelphia Phillies, are playing some really good ball, and are in that playoff hunt. They are in the middle of the wild card right now, in a pretty good position. I'd rather be in the second wild card than the third one right now. And of course, they've got an outside shot at the division, though the Atlanta Braves just keep rolling along.
Yeah, I think the Cubbies handed the Braves a couple losses. I think the Cubs want a series win against them, and it's going to happen. The Cubs aren't invincible, or the I talked to a Cubs fan and they said they're pretty decent. So they're playing the spoiler role, or trying to, with the Braves a little bit. But yeah, as you said, the Phillies doing quite well. We'll lead off with a story about those Phillies and Trey Turner. Exactly. He's the $300 million addition to the Phillies this year. Plays over at shortstop and second base. And Trey Turner has been horrible this year for the Phillies. In fact, in the last week, he really made a couple errors. He's been striking out. So, and that was on the road. So, what the local radio group that follows the Phillies did was take a social media post and poll and say, should we stand up and give Trey Turner a nice standing ovation when the Phillies come home? And that's exactly what happened. Rare time for Phillies fans to be exalted a little bit. And that's what they did. They gave Trey Turner a standing ovation maybe 3 times, brought his mother to tears. And Trey
Wow.
Turner was very impressed by it all. In fact, today it was known that he took a full couple bulletin board ads out thanking Phillies fans for supporting him and standing by him through his tough times.
And the Philly fans are not known usually for their support of struggling players. I mean, even Santa Claus had a rough year in Philadelphia, so
Yeah.
uh, that's a good thing, though. I really think it's a first year jitters, or whatever you want to call it. The first year free agency, you get that big contract, you come to a new town, and you want to do so much. And I think it just the second year, usually you relax a little more, and then you show how, everybody, how good you are. It seems to happen to everybody. Lindor went through it here. Carlos Beltran even went through it here. And it just happens to everybody, I think, because you want to prove that you're worthy of that money, and you just, you don't play your game. Then it's just what happens. But good for him, and good for the fans that are sticking by him. That's a great thing to hear in this day and age, especially.
Yeah, and as you said, not normal for Phillies fans. Most of the time, we want to boo players like that. And but Trey Turner got the support. He loved it, and maybe that's what it'll take to get him back on track for 2023. As you said, yeah, it's the first year jitters probably, and he's with us for many years for that $300 million
Yeah.
contract. I don't think we can offload him like the Mets were offloading multi-million-dollar pitchers
Oh
there
well,
last week.
the roof fell in on the Mets. But as we were talking before we went on the air here about, I believe they did the right thing. I think they got rid of some of the big contracts, albeit they are paying down a lot of the contract, laying out the money. Going to go in a different direction somewhat. Fans are ticked off because they said they're not going to pursue free agents next year. And that's not exactly what they said. They said they're going to spend the money more wisely instead of going after probably a Shohei Otani and paying him a ton of money. They could probably sign three lower level pitchers for that same kind of money that they would give to him. And I think that's the key at this point. Last year they traded for Chris before 2022, they brought in Chris Bassett. They signed Taiwan Walker, and those guys worked out nice last year, and they won 101 wins. This
Yeah.
year, they let those guys go. They should have signed one or two or both of those guys. They let them both go. I think that was a big mistake. They brought in Justin Verlander, which was okay, but he got off to a slow start. He got hurt in spring training. That didn't help. He never really found a groove. Now he's starting to find a groove, but uh, that's when you get rid of him. I even advocated for I could see trading Pete Alonso at this stage.
Uh-huh.
He's signed through 2024.
Uh-huh.
He'll be a free agent, and now you don't know whether he wants to he'll even want to come back at this point in time. And the thing is, they also traded David Robertson and who was closing for them, and it's hurt them. The bullpen has killed them. They haven't won a game since the trading deadline. They haven't won a game in August so far. They're on a 6-game losing streak now, and people saying, "Oh, they got rid of the closer, so the bullpen fell apart." But the bullpen wasn't that good to begin with. Plus the fact you can sign David Robertson back next year if for a reasonable contract if you want to, and you got the prospects that he brought in. So sometimes you have to bite the bullet. New York, it's tough, as in Philadelphia. Nobody wants to go through a rebuild, but I don't nowadays in the game. I don't think you have to go through a rebuild between trades and smart free agent signings. You can do a reload in a year or two. Look at the Cubbies. The Cubbies, nobody gave a chance, and they are the hottest team in baseball right now. And a guy I wanted to sign, and you can go back, people, and listen to Mets musings before the season. I said, why not sign Cody Bellinger? You could get him cheap. Maybe give him a 2-year contract. The Cubbies signed him to a 1-year deal. He's hitting 322 this year, turned his career back around. He's the old Cody Bellinger. And, that's what you got to do. You got to look for a guy that's got that pedigree that maybe is struggling and give him a shot and see if he can get it back. If he doesn't, you can always get rid of him. But the Cubbies are just winning games like crazy. They are the hottest team. I think they're a game out of the wild card, the last wild card spot in the National League. They're 2.5 games out of the division lead. And Rich, I'm sure we're going to look at the standings in a little bit. If we don't, that Central, however, is always up for grabs, and it's even more so this year. They've got a shot. They're only behind Milwaukee and Cincinnati, and in Cincinnati, we don't know because they're so young. We don't know if they're going to last, if they'll be able to hold up under the pressures of a pennant race. And Milwaukee, and the Cubbies are a rivalry that should be interesting to watch.
Yes, indeed. As we go through this baseball season already into the first week of August, hard to believe it's just flying by. We're starting to see a lot of football stories out there. They're going to be starting up soon in just a few weeks. They're already getting training camps and things like that. So we'll have some competition soon in the sporting world. But another pitching story, Gary, in the past week since we did our last show was Tuesday night. There was a no hitter thrown. Framber Valdez of the Houston Astros threw it. 93 pitches it took him. Astros won 2-0 over the Cleveland Guardians. And Valdez faced those 27 batters and put them down. The fourth fewest pitches needed in a no hitter since 1901. That was 93 total pitches. So Framber Valdez, who was so great during the World Series last year against the Phillies, pitches a no hitter.
And the Astros are starting to get moving, so watch out for them. They're just a great story, and I know they're still tainted with that whole cheating thing, but they did win a world championship without that taint, if you will. Without the cheating. So, yeah, those Houston Astros, boy, they're a great organization to watch.
Yeah, and another pitching story in the past week. This is a strange one. Yankees pitcher Domingo Germán came to work drunk, apparently, in the past week. You don't see that or hear that too often, but
not
yeah,
not not in this day and age.
he came in, startling the clubhouse with an incident where he flipped over a couch and was uh, physically and verbally abusive and belligerent in heated confrontations with some of his teammates and manager Aaron Boone. He smashed a TV as well. So a rough day there for Domingo Germán of the New York Yankees, and he's a pretty good pitcher too. It's a shame, like don't know what's what spiked it, but yeah, not a good thing.
And why would you show up then? I mean, if you've been drinking, just stay home.
Yeah, yeah.
Just call in sick that day or something. I mean, that's even worse because now they're going to be looking to get him into rehab or something. Who knows if this happened before? But Yankees are a struggling team, Rich. They are in last place in their division, still above 500, but last place, and I don't see them putting together. They just lost Carlos Rodon for who knows. He came back. I think he made 2 or 3 starts, and now he's out again with left hamstring. I think it is tightness. So they're in this kind of the same boat as the Mets, and it's not the same Yankee organization that you've ever heard about, and they've got a pretty good farm system. I'm surprised that they're not developing the players and that they were so quiet at the trade deadline too. Uh, they didn't do much at all, so
Yeah,
we will see.
that is true. And last night, this is a fresh story. Last night, there was a brawl, an actual fight
Oh,
in a game between the Cleveland Guardians, Jose Ramirez, and the Chicago White Sox, Tim Anderson. They squared off in the 6th inning of a baseball game, and Ramirez landed a looping right, says the Associated Press, a looping right hook to Anderson's jaw when the two infield stars squared off and started throwing punches last night. So Anderson and Ramirez likely facing suspensions for their actions, but it's getting fierce out there.
Yeah, it's getting tough. It's the dog days of summer, and I guess these guys are starting to feel the heat. The White Sox, of course, out of it. They've traded some of their big name players, a couple of pitches they got rid of. Can't think of the guy's name. It's so big name now, but one went to the Dodgers, and there was what's his name? Lynn. He went, and so
Liza or something.
I might have been the other one.
Yeah.
But So they've had a rough year. They had more expectations to be up there, and it didn't. It fell apart, and I guess tempers run short now. Guardians are in the pennant race, and so tempers run short. And wait until
Yeah.
it gets to September. It'll really be ticked
Here's
off.
here's a good quote from Cleveland Guardians starter Noah Syndergaard. He says, "Quote: From the second I set foot in the clubhouse, I could tell these teams don't like each other."
Yeah.
He, Syndergaard was acquired in a trade last week, and he went on further to say, "Quote: And I don't think it's going to be resolved anytime soon." So interesting.
Well, he'll be getting, I think he's a free agent at the end of the year, so I don't think he'll be re-upping there. And Rich, how about Shohei Ohtani? Is this guy having the greatest year ever in baseball? MLB did a story the other day, left it up to the reader to decide. But as a batter, a few days ago, he was hitting 310. He had 40 home runs. And as a pitcher, he had a 3.32 ERA in 124 2/3 innings with 160 Ks. As we all know, he's a two-way player and has been, I think he's been out for a few days with a little tenderness or tightness in his legs. So he's been sitting out a little bit, but 40 homers, 310 he's hitting. Um, as a pitcher, 3.32 ERA, 160 Ks, but he's only 9-5. So the record, he's not dominating as a pitcher, but is this guy like unbelievable?
Yeah, he's definitely one of those players that you don't see very often at all, sort of like the best in the league, you'd have to say. And Otani lately has been said that he's getting a little exhausted going, pitching and batting. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, see if the Angels, give him a little bit of a break, as they did pick up former All Star Lucas Giolito uh, to bolster their pitching rotation. And but the Angels haven't been winning. They've been losing some tough games.
Yeah.
And there was a New York Post article just the other day showing Otani on the bench almost to tears after the Angels lost against the Mariners. So he's a tough competitor for sure.
And I think the Angels made a mistake. They should have dealt him either over the winter last year or at the trade deadline. They could have got a parcel for him like you wouldn't believe. And I just think they're making a mistake. I'm not sure he's gonna stay. And they're gonna get stuck then. They'll get stuck with him or they'll get stuck empty handed. They'll get a draft pick, but that's about it. But uh I mean, you can't deny what he's doing. It's something special.
That's for sure. Another player, pitching story for this week, retired after 15 years. That's Cole Hamels, 2008 World Series MVP, part of the Phillies team there when they won it all in 2008 rather, decided to hang up his pitching glove, and he was trying to make a comeback with the San Diego Padres, was signed to a minor league deal, but he just couldn't make it. So that's the end of the career, 15 seasons long for Cole Hamels. Hasn't pitched since 2020, so he's been trying to catch on with the team, but it didn't work out. I guess he was trying to mold himself after like a Jamie Moyer type who pitched,
Yeah.
into a 40-year-old status, but
Hmm.
just couldn't get there apparently. So
Yeah. Yeah.
great career there. Went by all too fast to me.
Yeah. Well, he was so dominant there for a short period of time. and then he got traded to Texas, I think,
Yeah.
and then kind of faded. I mean, it wasn't the same kind of pitcher. Injuries take their toll on these guys, and it's a shame. But too bad. It would have been fun to have him to come back again. A la, like you said, Jamie Moyer or Rich Hill or one of those guys that uh, hung around until they were 112 and
Yeah.
were older than they were throwing pitches. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We depending how long you followed the game, there's been a lot of those players that have been able to
mhm.
hang around. Big Sexy, for example, he's stuck around for a long
Big
time.
sexy, yeah. What a character he was, and he's retiring. I think we said that last week.
Yes.
He announced his retirement from baseball, and he was a character,
Yes.
no doubt about it.
Well, don't forget to check out our show, the Baseball Talk Radio show, here at baseballtalkradio.com and everywhere you can download quality podcasts over at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify even has great podcasts. And this week I'll be on Baseball PhD, which is one of the shows on
Oh,
baseballtalkradio.com. Be talking to the great Ed Casputis, Farley Dillinger, and Mark Rantala, the hosts there at Baseball PhD. So I'm looking forward to talking to those guys this week. And just
hmm
a small note here before we do the standings to bring out the show tonight. Uh, Gary, Jonathan Papelbon gave me a follow on Twitter. I'm humbled.
All right.
Yeah, I talked about, somebody was talking about Jonathan Papelbon. I said he's one of the greatest closers ever, and he's the greatest Phillies closer ever. I think he has 123 saves in just under 3 and 3/4 seasons. So he must have saw my post and gave me a follow. So Jonathan,
All right.
you're listening to this show. Thank you, and we would love to talk to you on the show one time.
Sure, anytime. Come on down, as they used to say on the prices, right?
Yeah,
Come on down,
that
Jonathan
would be cool.
Papelbon. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great.
But yeah, follow Gary's podcast, Mets Musings, great Mets Musings show weekly. My show, Phillies Talk Podcast, and a host of other shows. Um, our great friends Jeff and Len over at Baseball and Barbecue are on there, and they have a star-studded cast of guests all the time. So
Boy,
check it out.
they certainly know how to book them. I'll tell you that much.
Yes, they got a good booking agent.
Boy, I'll say they got a whole slew of great guests over there. Go check them out, as Rich said. All right, Rich, you want to take a look at the standings right now? We're running out of time, but
Yeah, let's go ahead.
take a quick look. We got in the American League East, Baltimore is still on top. They've got a 3-game lead over the Tampa Bay Rays and a 7.5 game over the Toronto Blue Jays. Then come the Yankees, who just got out of the last place today, and the Red Sox. They're battling it out down there for last, but don't want to be anywhere near that place. In the Central, the American League Central, we got Minnesota and Cleveland going at it. 4.5 game lead for those Twinkies over the Guardians. Detroit comes in third at 9 games out, and they are way below 500. And they're only 9 games out of that. Then the White Sox and the Kansas City Royals, who we were talking about before, a scrappy bunch. They're not that good a team, but they really play hard and hustle, and I like the way the direction that they're going, so they should be okay. In the
Awesome.
AL West, sorry, Rich.
No, awesome. I said.
Okay. In the AL West, we got the Texas Rangers at 66 and 46. They've got a 2.5 game lead over the Houston Astros. and a 6-game lead over the Seattle Mariners, and then come the Angels. They're 10.5 games back. As we were saying, they're just not, uh, they're a game below 500. And then bringing up the rear is the Oakland A's. Rich, you want to take the National League?
Sure. Of course, in the NL East, it's the Atlanta Braves, 10.5 games above the Phillies. They have 70 wins, 39 losses. Moving over to the NL Central, it's Milwaukee with 60 and 53. Second place is up for grabs. The Cubs and Cincinnati Reds, just 1.5 games behind those Brewers. So that whole division is still up for grabs, really. Out there in the West, it's the Dodgers leading the way in a seesaw fashion, 63 wins, 46 losses. Close behind them, the San Francisco Giants again, 61 and 51, and trailing behind Arizona, who put up a fight, but now looks like that might be done. San Diego, disappointing season, and Colorado in last place in the NL West.
Yeah, interesting with the Arizona, but they're a team on the rise, I think. So they're still young, so we'll have to see with them over the course of a couple of seasons how they manage to go. And Rich, we got less than a minute and a half, so again, another great show.
Yes, thank you for tuning into this show. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Tell your friends about us if you like it. If you don't tell them about it, like if you don't like the show. But thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you again next week.
And as Rich said, we'll talk to you again on the next episode of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. See you all then.